So, the reason we're here is that Arizona Talks exists, and we exist because we believe that the rhetoric around policy and politics can get a little bit too hot, if we were to say it nicely. It can get toxic and even violent if we're going to take it realistically. And so, the reason why we created this organization is because we want Arizona to have a healthy civil discourse. We have many examples of how debates devolve into name calling and yelling and people getting kicked out of places. What we want is a community and a society that has examples like the ones we're going to see tonight and like the ones that Arizona Talks put together. That is a conversation that is civil, a conversation that is fact-based, and a conversation that is robust. We don't just want to agree with one another, but we want to be in conversation with people that we disagree to try to understand each other. That's how this country becomes healthier and how we cure some of the recent political violence that we've experienced. So that's why Arizona Talks exists. Tonight, we will be talking about, obviously, immigration. We have different voices on this panel. Something to expect is that you will hear from people and views that you don't agree with. And that is one of the reasons that we're here. So that's just a reminder of why we exist and why we're all here. I ask you to be respectful. I ask you to think and challenge yourself and your thinking and what you already believe about immigration with the conversation we're going to offer you tonight. One other thing, if this sounds like a great mission to you, if you identify with civil debate and dialogue, we're trying to grow this organization. We invite you to be a member. If you're already a member, thank you so much. Actually, if you're a member, will you raise your hand, please? Let's thank these guys. Yeah. That's how we're able to put conversations like these together and you get out and talk to more people. So to get everything kicked off, I want to introduce our moderator for this evening. KTAR News has been such a great partner because they understand the importance of civil discourse. This is not this first talk. This is, I think, your second or third you're going to be doing with us. But he's a friend. He's a person that understands politics deeply here in the state. He's been talking and engaging for many, many years, and a friend to Arizona Talks. Please help me welcome Mike Broomhead.
There we are. Okay. I'm sure you think it's kind of counterintuitive if you want civil debate, you have somebody from talk radio moderate. But I can promise you it is a very important topic to me. And this tonight is not about my opinion. But I want you to know my background. I was with a Cuban immigrant girl for a very, very long time. My best friend's parents are from Mexico. And he took me in when I was really a troubled teenager and taught me work ethic. And he was a very successful businessman, and he owned produce fields. And I worked in a tomato packing house, putting boxes together and getting produce inspected by the Department of Agriculture, working side by side with migrant workers when in my teenage years. And so I have a great respect and I think a broad view, but you can always broaden it. So tonight you've got some great speakers and we're going to have a panel. I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves to you. So I'd like you to let me welcome them as they come up one at a time to give you an introductory statement. We ask them to keep it a little bit brief because we're running a little behind, but I want to start with Arizona House of Representatives from the 3rd Congressional District, Representative Yassamin Ansari.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you to Arizona Talks for hosting this wonderful event. This is my second time participating, and I have such a great experience with it, so it's an honor to be back. That video was very heartwarming. I think this topic is one that has always been very important to me because my family story is an immigrant story. I am the proud daughter of 2 immigrants who came to the United States from Iran in the 1970s. And the Iran that my parents grew up in is not the country that we see on television today. They grew up in a relatively free society with great education system, opportunities for men and for women, and both were going to be there forever. They had never had intentions of leaving. My dad had come to the United States to pursue his degree in civil engineering in the early 70s with the intention of returning to Iran. And then the revolution took place in 1979 that completely transformed the country overnight. All rights were lost for women, and a theocratic regime took over that still takes hold today. So my mom fled to this country when she was 16 years old, and my dad was able to seek asylum. But their story has really, the reason I am doing what I am doing today in public service is because of my parents. They taught me from a very young age that democracy cannot be taken for granted, that you think that you live in a country with freedoms and rights, and you always think it'll always stay the same, and that can change overnight. And I used to kind of laugh at my mom when I was a kid, and she would say things like that. And she's like, no, don't be naive. It can happen here too. And so for that reason, their story, I just also add that my dad remained the most patriotic American I have ever met in my life. Anytime he leaves the country and he comes back, he's like, thank God I'm back in the United States. I love it here. It's the best country on earth. But that is why I fight so hard to protect immigrants, to protect and want to have a comprehensive immigration system, have legal immigration, have the opportunity and the doors of our country open to refugees and asylum seekers and people who want to come here and seek a better life. So in this moment, I am serving as a congresswoman representing Arizona's 3rd district, an incredibly diverse community where more than 64 languages are spoken. So we are deeply, deeply impacted by the Trump administration's policies when it comes to mass deportations and the billions of dollars that are given to ICE in recent months to expand detention center capacity. So from day one in Congress, I have been focused on this issue really from the vantage point of doing everything I can to mitigate harm and protect my community here in Arizona. From the early days in January, we knew that there were insane quotas for mass deportation. Donald Trump wants to deport 3 million people per year. And that means that many who are being detained and then deported never have any sort of criminal record whatsoever. I'm sure we'll get into that in the Q&A. But so from the early days, we actually were able to team up with Salvador and other immigration attorneys to do know your rights trainings back in January to make sure that every single person in our district, no matter their legal status, whether they're citizens, whether they're green card holders, whether they're undocumented, it's important that every single person know what their constitutional rights are, because our constitutional rights are significantly under attack in this administration. Now, since then, the situation has gotten much, much worse. I know that in my district, and this is common across the country, people are afraid to go to school. People are afraid to go to work. This is impacting our local economy. There's terror and fear in the community here in Phoenix and across Arizona. It's very real. Many people have been detained. I have gone to the Eloy Detention Center multiple times now, where thousands of people are being detained. I have been one of the luckier members of Congress in that I have actually been allowed in. This is a legal right that we have as members of Congress, but some in other parts of the United States have been not allowed, and now there's lawsuits for that. I have been allowed in. I have also had the opportunity to speak with dozens of people who have been detained. I've spent now probably 10 hours plus talking to detainees at Eloy. And I can just say that the conditions that have been described to me are horrific. Everything from women being given used underwear regularly that is causing rampant UTIs and infections, not being given clean drinking water, purposeful shutting off of air conditioning during the extreme heat months, lack of ability to access real health care. Obviously, the place is a prison, so the psychological torture of being in a prison, in many cases, somebody who's come here as an asylum seeker. The most recent time I went, we were in a room with 25 people, myself and my district director, Maria. We essentially held a town hall in 3 different languages because we had people from so many different countries in the room. Spanish, English, Farsi. We had people from Iran, Mexico, Cuba, Russia, Kazakhstan, and all of the women were just, there were tears. It is horrific. One of the most egregious cases is a constituent of mine in Yadi, who is a green card holder, and she has been there for many months now. She has leukemia, and she's being denied access to see an oncologist. So my big focus as of late has been to try to pressure ICE. We held a press conference outside the U.S. Capitol with this one demand of having ICE allow her to see an oncologist so that she can get the treatment that she needs. Because thus far, the 6 months that she's been there, she's lost over 60 pounds. I talked to her for 30 minutes. She has bruises all over her body. She's vomiting blood. She cannot walk. And the medical care in the facility continues to tell her that she has a stomach ulcer, and they give her Tylenol and stomach ulcer medication. So these are just some of the stories. The reality is that in the budget that passed a couple of months ago that Trump signed into law, there's $170 billion additionally being given to immigration enforcement, $40 billion to ICE to build more detention centers. Right now we can hold up to 40,000 people a day in ICE detention centers around the U.S. Soon it will be 100,000 with the amount of money that is given. So it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. I will just say, I know that I'm not going to change the administration's deportation policies. My goal is to put so much pressure and so much oversight and accountability on the conditions inside the facilities to not just pressure ICE, because there's two companies. This is the piece I really think is important to talk about. There's private companies that are making billions of dollars off of this. Core Civic and Geo Group are the two main companies that build these detention centers. Just like so many other facets of our society and economy, these are companies that gave a lot of money to help get our president elected and are now going to see record profits. And I think with the amount of money that they're getting, it would not be very difficult to make sure there's clean drinking water, to make sure that people are treated well, to make sure that in U.S. custody, no matter what, people from wherever they are in the world are treated with basic dignity and respect. I see this as a national security crisis and a diplomatic issue for the United States as well. I mean, to have hundreds of thousands of people then go back to their home countries being treated this way by the U.S. government is never going to be good for our long-term process. So sorry going on. Very passionate about this issue, but I'm sure we will keep talking about it. Thank you.
If you don't mind, take your seat, Congresswoman. Thank you. This is the great thing about this evening is the differences in perspectives and points of view. So one of those points of view who's been in law enforcement for 20 years now, serving the people of Pinal County, who is now the elected sheriff in Pinal County. And a little something interesting about Pinal County, we don't think of Pinal County as being a border county, but they do border tribal land. And the tribal land goes all the way south and actually straddles the Mexican border. So they deal in Pinal County with a lot of the traffic that comes through the Vico Valley. And so they have been dealing with this issue in Pinal County for a very, very long time. And at the center of that is a deputy and now a sheriff. He has a perspective that's important to this conversation. So please welcome the Pinal County Sheriff, Ross Teeple.
Thanks. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Appreciate you guys coming out. This is a wonderful organization. And when I find out they're into civil discourse, that's the reason I came, because I love civil discourse. I believe we've gotten to a point in this country where we can't have a simple debate and that open dialogue, because I can tell you, I'll be completely honest, many of the things that she said, I don't agree with from a professional standpoint. One thing that I definitely did not know before I came here tonight that we would agree on is I like to eliminate private residence. It's been one of my soapboxes I said for years. All of you guys that pay taxes in Arizona, you pay taxes to help out private corporations in ways that you understand. See, the big thing about it is we have an attorney here that I think will confirm this for me, but a brand new prosecuting attorneys, they just get out of law school, they become a prosecuting attorney, they want high conviction rates. One of the easiest way to get a high conviction rate is to prosecute someone that committed a crime inside of the prison. And if an inmate attacks a corrections officer or even another inmate and commits aggravated assault or unfortunate murder, that's an easy crime to prosecute because there's cameras, there's witnesses, it's a very controlled environment. Here's the issue. In Florence, Arizona, we have a private prison that houses nothing but Alaskan inmates. So we have individuals that commit crimes in Alaska. They are flown to Arizona and put in a private prison in Arizona. And if they commit a crime in Arizona, a state that they've never lived in, they are taken back to Alaska now because they're not considered low custody inmates anymore. And so they take him back to Alaska. I personally extradited 2 inmates from Alaska back to the United States so they could stand trial for crimes they committed inside a private prison in Arizona. And the private prisons don't pay for any of that. So that's been one of my standpoints is to get on that. And Mike Broomhead talked about also about the automation. I was just in a meeting this morning with the automation. The tribal leaders are fed up with the fact that their people are being victimized. They're either being enticed with large sums of money or they're being victimized at gunpoint to allow the cartel to bring drugs and humans across their tribal reservation. It is an absolute travesty down there. And I ask everyone to just take a moment to understand what my Broomhead was saying and just Google the automation, common spelling, but just Google that and you can see that it crosses the international border. I've been down to the border at the Tunnel Automation. I was actually fortunate enough, I was a search and rescue deputy for many years. I was fortunate enough to get trained by the Shadow Wolves. If you guys know, that's a DEA contingent that they're all Native Americans and they track drug smugglers across Native American land. Because I was a search and rescue deputy, I got to go down on the tribal reservation and actually live with them for a while and track smugglers. The border on the Tunnel Automation is not existent because they don't recognize the international border. And trust me, they don't have a casino DACA automation, so their source of income is the cartels. And they're tired of being victimized. So they're literally, for the first time in history, the tribal leaders that just today said that they want motion sensors put in the ground. They want the federal government to be able to monitor the motion sensors so when these drug smugglers will come across. I love the video. I'll tell you guys, it touched me in a lot of ways. My name is Teeple, like Steeple with the S taken off. And it is literally an Ellis Island name. My aunt spent a bunch of money on Ancestry 123 or whatever, and it came back that literally the Great Potato Famine, my family was coming over here. There was too many Templars, so then they became Temples, and then they became Steeples, and then they became Teeple, and then Teeples. So that's where my name came from as far as that. The Statue of Liberty, has anybody here ever been to France and seen the mini one? My beautiful wife is from France. She's literally a legal immigrant to the United States. I met her where all good Christians meet their spouses. I picked her up at a bar in San Diego. She was over here on student visas. She was studying at San Diego State University, and I was stationed at Point Loma sub base. I'm special kind of crazy. I got on a submarine, a ship that actually sank for a living. And that's where I met her. We decided to get married. I'm old enough, this was bad during Desert Storm. Desert Storm, we were at war with Iraq. The issue that people don't remember from back then is Tunisia is a ally of Iraq. So the war kicks out. I fill out a fiance visa to bring my wife over, my fiance over, so we get married. Naval Investigating Service comes down to my submarine and they say, hey, we're going to have to cancel your top secret security clearance until we can complete her background investigation because her father's from Tunisia, Africa, and she spent a substantial amount of her childhood in Tunisia, Africa. And if you've ever been in the military, you understand that this is the kind of answer you get. I said, well, how long is it going to take for you to finish your background? They said, how long is the war going to last? So we did that. I ended up not re-enlisting in the Navy. When I got out of the Navy, we flew over. We went through the whole immigration process. I would have loved to be able to afford an immigration lawyer back then. I was a construction apprentice electrician. I think I made $5.80 an hour when I first got out of the Navy. And this is my story about how I understand how difficult legal immigration is in the United States. Is we did all the paperwork. We spent an enormous amount of money back then when I only made $5 an hour. She gets her green card. She's a permanent resident status, and we're working. Her green card is expiring. So we go down to the place in Tucson. We sit forever waiting to get our number called. So we go up there. We fill out the application to get a new green card. About 2 months later, I get a letter in the mail that says that they don't have an address to mail their green card to. And I'm not kidding, guys. They mailed me a letter saying, we don't have an address on file to mail your green card. So we went down to Tucson and sat and waited for the whole number to be called again. And we got up there like that. And I thought I'm a funny guy. I think I'm a funny guy. I'm not funny, but I'm a happy guy. And I was like, hey, you're not going to believe this. We got this letter mailed to us saying that you don't have an address for us. That's exactly right. We don't have an address to give you your green card. But you mailed us something. You have an address. What, right over their head, cost us an extra $180, I think it was, because we didn't process the paperwork in the right amount of time when we finally got through it. But she did that. She is the most proudest legal immigrant to the United States you'll ever meet. She went from being raised in the suburbs of Paris and never owning a car her entire life to now she drives a one-ton Dodge Mavecat. And she pulls a horse trailer and she rides her horses everywhere. And she just absolutely loves America. If they ever do one of these talks on socialized medicine, She would love to come down and tell you the evils of socialized medicine in France, but that's a whole different subject. Really appreciate you guys all coming out tonight. Love to answer any other questions. Thank you.
This is what happens when you ask two elected officials and an attorney to be brief in their introductions. I love this man's perspective. He's been on my TV show a number of times. We've had a lot of conversations. Ironically, and I think justifiably, he is an immigration attorney, but as a dreamer, also has a perspective that many of us don't. So please welcome Salvador Macías.
Hello, everybody. I don't know if you felt that chill. That was hell freezing over because they were able to agree on something. But thank you so much to Arizona Talks. Thank you, Mike, for the introduction. A little bit about me. I'm an immigration attorney. I'm also a criminal law attorney here in Arizona. I was born in Mexico, came to the United States when I was 5 years old, and have grown up in Phoenix my whole life. So to me, Arizona is home. To me, my community isn't just the immigrant community, but the American community. I am still a DACA recipient. My wife is a DACA recipient, which means that, ironically, I can help people get their citizenship and their green card, but there's literally nothing I can do for me, and there's nothing I could do for her. But I love America. I only know one Constitution. I only know one Pledge of Allegiance. I joke around with my wife that the day that I become a citizen, because I am still optimistic that the day will come, the celebration will be bigger than our wedding. But the reason I decide to do these conversations is because I've had mentors on the left, I've had mentors on the right. There's so much that we can agree on, but I'm just so tired of us yelling past each other. It's just a matter of having that conversation. Am I going to get everything I want? No. Am I going to convince you to change your whole worldview? No. Or can I reach out to your humanity and find that dignity in that conversation? And I think we can, and I believe we can, because that's what America has always done. Thank you.
All right, so you guys are going to have to share a microphone if you don't mind, and I'd like to start with the Congresswoman. And I'm going to ask the same question to all three of you if you want to give us an answer. I think a great way to start would be, as we've now found out there are some positions of agreement, from your perspective, what is the biggest misconception about the immigration debate? From your perspective, where's the misconception start?
So I think in this moment, the misconception that I come across often is this terminology like legal versus illegal. And I say that because there certainly has been illegal immigration. There's no doubt about that. But there are also many people who have tried to come here legally or who have come here legally through different forms, whether it's TPS, whether it's through the CBP-1 app program, whether, there's Afghan refugees who were brought over here and given certain status because of their support of our troops during the war in Afghanistan. And still in this environment and under this administration, they're being targeted in the same way. And I understand that many of these forms of statuses were not necessarily meant to be permanent, but I think that we have really failed in providing long-term solutions for people who need it. That definitely applies to DACA recipients as well. We, for decades, failed to come up with a long-term solution.
Would you agree then, or concede to a certain degree, that because of what happened in the last 4 years and the millions of people that came into the country, that it's bogged down the system, and even if you don't agree with what's being done, that something had to be done?
I think that when it comes to the border being secured, yes, I do agree with that, for sure. And I think that mistake in the way that Biden handled that has led to a complete overcorrection now that has led to Trump taking it way too far and harming so many people that don't deserve to be harmed, that there could be pathways forward, that they're not going after the most violent criminals. There are many people in the various other statuses that are now being impacted on.
Okay, let's go ahead. The same question for Sheriff Teeple. I'll let you use this mic and you guys can share that.
All right.
Misconception.
All right. The biggest misconception that local law enforcement in Arizona gets frustrated with, and I can say this for all the border states, is when they keep regurgitating that these people that came in for the last 4 years, 12 million people came into this country over the last 4 years, and that they were properly vetted. It is absolutely impossible to properly vet someone from a country that has no legal justice system and has no codes of records. I can tell you from my personal experience alone, I know one individual that he's been twice deported felon back to South America, and both times he comes back in the United States, he has a different, complete identity. So there's no way in the world that you can tell me that he was properly vetted. The tragedy that I saw before I ran for sheriff and became the elected sheriff was I was the lieutenant over aviation and search and rescue. We got a 911 call in the Sawtooth Mountains, middle of nowhere, middle of summer, extremely dry. Got a phone call, 911, we're out here, we're lost, we don't have any water. We were told to call this number. We went out, picked them up. There were 5 individuals from Chad, Africa. It had made it all the way over to the Sawtooth Mountains in Arizona. All 5 of these individuals had brand new shoes, brand new clothes. They had matching backpacks. They had gift cards, cash, and 2 phones each. They had one phone that they were told to use for personal use. They had another phone that they were told that this is what you call 911 on in case there's an emergency. Now, my answer back to is when I spoke to the Border Patrol agents, we have no law enforcement liaison in Chad, Africa. They literally don't have a government system. It's like Somalia, where it's anarchy there. Those individuals were given asylum claims because they're coming from a country that, quite honestly, makes Ethiopia look rich, and they're given asylum claims here, but don't at the same time tell me that they were properly vetted. There's no documentation to prove who these individuals are and what their purpose is coming into this country. Just this morning, I was talking about the fact that we had the meeting with the Tohono O'odham Nation, and if you go back last year, almost 100 people on the terrorist watch list were captured along the Tohono O'odham border area. If they capture 100 of them, imagine how many terrorists got away and got into this country. So that's the one thing that we keep trying to say is stop saying that people were properly vetted. There's no way, if you just crunch the numbers, for me to hire someone at the sheriff's office to run their background check, their NCIC, the ACIC check, run a local records check, reach out to them. For me to run one of my background investigators, it takes an average of 42 hours. For just a little over a week to do a proper background check to let the congresswoman, if she wasn't a congressman, into our jail so someone could volunteer and maybe a preacher wants to come in and provide religious services to someone. So 40 hours for one person. Figure out 4 years, 12 million people, the man hours it would take to actually properly vet every individual that crossed our extremely open porous border over the last 4 years.
The biggest misconception is that every administration thinks that they're doing it right. The Biden administration had to make a decision when you had all these immigrants coming to the border asking for asylum. Do I let them in and detain them by themselves or their families to vet them, however long as it needs to take, and not allow them the opportunity to get out? That's going to cost the taxpayers more money. It's going to keep families potentially separated, and it's going to keep people detained. The other answer, so they, instead of doing that, they decided to parole them in. The government allowed you to come into the country on Scout's honor that you're going to appear in court. That's a promise that the country is making to you, that you're going to be able to have your asylum claim heard in the immigration courts. The current administration is saying, no, we can't trust them. They don't show up, etc. So we're not letting them in, or we're going to detain them if they want to be in. Those are the two only options. I think both options are heavily extreme. I think we have enough intelligence in our country that we can come up with a better detention system for people that are being vetted versus people that already committed a crime. I don't think that would take rocket science to figure that out. But the fact of the matter is now, You have people that were paroled into this country, not all of them. Some people entered illegally and they were released, but paroled into this country that had a court date. One of the things that we hear the most often is, well, they go on the run. Some do. I'm not going to lie to you. But why? So what ended up being, you might have seen this in May and in June. You had ICE officers showing to the immigration courts. What they were doing is that they were, in order to have immigration courts, you have to have, think of the equivalent of an indictment, saying, we are charging you with being able to get deported. And because you entered under this status, I'll lift this indictment and you can continue to fight your case outside. Well, what they were doing were dismissing that indictment altogether, got rid of CBP-1, and now they were re-detaining them at the immigration court, but now they're being indicted under a classification where they no longer qualify for a bond. That means that if they want to fight their case, they have to fight it being detained. Now you're going to have to fight a case being detained, low on funds. There is no public attorney that is going to help you. You have to get a private attorney. And because currently bonds aren't eligible for anyone who didn't enter with a visa, now you're in a backlog in immigration court inside the detention center. So you told me, do you want to spend 6 months to a year to fight your case without representation in a language you don't understand? Or do you want to self-deport? Those are your two options. The only one who I see here, and I agree with the sheriff, is the private corporation. Because they either are going to get people in beds, or their administration is going to be able to fluff up how many people got deported. Not how many people got justice, got dignity, got compassion. So the biggest misconception in immigration today is that both parties think they have it right, and they've shown time and time again that they both have it wrong.
Thank you. Now somebody was McClacko and for people. See, we've had hell freeze over twice, so I applauded a lawyer. That was amazing. I'll agree or disagree with the following statement. We'll start with the sheriff. We can find a better way to allow people to come here the right way if we stop them from coming the wrong way first. Agree or disagree, and why?
Absolutely agree. We go back to the fact that I have a neighbor, a good friend of mine. He worked Border Patrol for almost 30 years and was going to resign or retire. He had his retirement paperwork filled out if the Democrat won the election because of this one factor. He personally sent 6 children to the same house in Oregon. 6 children that came across the border, unaccompanied minors, with a little note on that said, I'm supposed to go to this address. This is my caretaker. And that's what I completely agree with the gentleman when he said both sides could do it better, because that was the biggest issue that we saw in law enforcement is under the last 4 years, they've lost 300,000 children into the interior of the United States. They even admitted that they don't know where 250,000 children are. And that's why my friend absolutely positively was going to retire from Border Patrol, the job that he loved, that he planned on promoting up with, because he said, I can't send one more child to a house that I know is a sexual predator house. I can't do it. There's no way in the world that this house has 6 uncles in it. That's the thing, that if we secure the border and figure out a way for let people come in here legally, like my beautiful bride did, the first thing that we have to do is secure the border to make it impossible for people to cross illegally into our country, unvetted.
Commissar?
I think I agree. I think yes, I agree. Definitely agree with securing the border. Definitely agree that everybody has failed. I think moving forward, we have to come together to come up with a system that is dignified, that does have compassion, that does offer opportunities for legal immigration. Right now, we're not seeing that whatsoever.
I'm so glad you're here, and I'm sorry I'm not picking on you, but you are there. You are, as Senator McCain used to say, you're trying to do God's work in the city of Satan. Not my phrase, but you are there in the fight. And is it possible? Do you think it's possible? Because what we're saying here sounds like there are places of agreement. Can the United States Congress at some point work together to fix it? Do you think both sides will come to the table? They can't agree on the Dreamers. That was 2 presidents ago. Yeah, but look how long ago that was. Do you in your heart of hearts believe that both sides can come together in an agreement that the American people can live with?
I do. I don't. I think it will be very difficult to happen under Trump with a Stephen Miller in the White House, who is very extreme on this issue. I think that there are people that are demonstrating that possibility. There are bipartisan efforts in Congress. There's a bill called the Dignity Act that Congressman Veronica Escobar, she's a Democrat, and Maria Salazar, she's a Republican. They work together on its limited, solutions to certain parts of the problem. I think it's very possible. I just think we are in such a hyper-polarized environment, and from both sides. Like, I get it from my side as well, and I'm happy to criticize it. If I do one thing that seems like I am not 1,000% anti-Trump, then I am quote unquote bending the knee to Trump, or I am doing XYZ from my own side. And I think the other side gets that as well. And when you live in that type of a hyper-polarized environment, you're not incentivized to try to work together.
And you're running for re-election every 2 years.
Exactly. And so that also, like, this type of mentality of nuance, like, nuance doesn't exist in day-to-day politics anymore. And it's a massive issue.
I'm sorry, would you know that there are people on my side of the aisle that would say you're not nuanced? That this conversation to me is the best conversation you and I ever had, because I haven't said it, but there are people that would say that you're not nuanced. And what you're saying here tonight is such a breath of fresh air. It really is, to hear you say you believe that the Congress can come together and that there's a nuance. I think it's fantastic. So thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
To answer, yes, it would be a lot easier to handle immigration in general if we could open up our legal pathways. And I think that the room exists. I mean, you heard in that video that INA, the Immigration Naturalization Act, was 1965. I'm sure we could come up with better ideas than what people came up in 1965. If my phone can start targeting me based on the algorithm that I'm having a conversation with, I'm sure we can use the tech bros to come up with something smarter for a database, a way to make the system go faster instead of having to wait a year and a half to get some sort of legal status. Now, what do I think about this administration and being able to do it? I can honestly say I don't agree with anything this president has showcased me. But ironically enough, I think he's the president that could get something across the line. He's a president that has his power, his party, who support him, has a very public support. If Mr. Trump says the sky is green, everyone falls in line and says the sky is green. So if we were able to get him to a place, or he has in the past with Dreamers, hey, there's a pathway here, and he were to put his weight behind it, yes, I do think that then you'd have enough politicians find the cover of the president, who is tough on Trump, to be able to do something amazing, something great for America.
You just say MAGA? All right, so I'm going to start with, this is going to be great perspectives here. And I want to shift a little bit to the possibility of an expanded visa program. We have a workforce needs. I'm going to give you guys my perspective. I came from the construction world. I was an electrical contractor before I was in radio and television. And I could tell you that we, around 2005, 2006, we were building about 65,000 homes a year in Arizona. And we're about half of that now. And it's not need, we have the need. We don't have the workforce. So from an immigration attorney, from an elected official, from a sheriff, I would love to get your perspective on an expanded program that would allow good people that are vetted to come and work in America. If they want to work towards citizenship, we'd love to welcome that. But if they want to come and just work, just like we have the visas for the farm workers in Southern Arizona, would you embrace, and is it possible to expand the visa program to allow that workforce to be vetted and take some of the pressure off the board?
Yes, and I think you do it in a two-prong approach. And it's funny because like we're not even having to reinvent the wheel. There's something that already happened. So there's this thing called 245I. Okay, it was a second of the law back in 2001, April of 2001. The government said, hey, we know that there's a lot of undocumented people in the country. We'll do this. If someone can file an application for you, whether that is a U.S. citizen brother, a mom, a dad, an employer, whenever that visa becomes available, we'll allow you to pay $1,000 for violating our immigration laws and being able to fix your status here in Phoenix. You're still going to get vetted. You're still going to go through a background check, etc. But that is your reprimand. Your reprimand is you violated one of our civil laws, and you will have to pay a fine. I say revamp it. Revamp it. There are literally millions of immigrants here who, if you told them, if someone asked you to pay $20,000 to be able to stay in the country, like, would you do it? I guarantee they're going to sell a lot of tamales. But they will get it done. And you know what? So me as an immigration attorney, USCIS is all funded by fees. Your taxpayers do not go to that. Your taxpayer money does not go to that. It is all paid by fees. So if you charge people a fine, having to do a background check, making sure that they're abiding by the laws and they've lived, as long as they've been here, a law-abiding life, you can use that money to beef up our border, making sure those bad actors don't come in. It's the same thing. People make this generalized understanding of, you are criminals, you deserve this. Okay? But a lot of times these are, if it even is a crime, it's a misdemeanor. And you don't expect to have your child traumatized because you ran at the red light or because you were in excessive speed, criminal speeding. So that's where I'm at. I think there's a way to say, yes, you are going to pay. You're going to get to the back of the line. You are going to go through a background check, and we're going to make sure you deserve to be here. That's for the people that are here. Now, Mike was talking about we have a gap in the workforce. And guess what, people? We are not making as many kids as we used to because it's a lot more expensive. And frankly, people are just making the decision not to do it. That doesn't mean that we stop growing. We have this conception that the United States is already filled to the brim. No, there's a lot of empty space and there's a lot of opportunity because this land is vast. I mean, we see every day when we're driving out into the East Valley or the West Valley, and it's a new development after new development. So what do you do with them? You inform people. The big reason that you have so many people asking for asylum, did you know that? I mean, I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy, but there were flyers flown all over the middle, Latin America, saying, if you just claim that you're afraid, you can enter the United States. That is a lie. That is not an asylum claim. There's a lot of other steps that you have to meet. But if you're talking to a population that is uneducated, that is downtrodden, and that they're looking for hope. So if you're telling them up north there's hope, which is the story that we tell the world, I can't blame them for searching for hope for their family. Risking their lives. So what do? Let's be better neighbors. Go down there. Hey, you know what? You may not have gone to more than a middle school, but there's an opportunity in America for you. You do have to do this. You can only work there for 5 years and then come back and continue to come back be free. If you would have done that back in 1995, my parents would not have come. Their goal was to come to the United States, work for a little bit, and start a business in Mexico and move on. But what happens is that you had their child go to kinder, learn that Pledge of Allegiance, do good in school, had teachers that would look at him and say, you can do anything that you set your mind to. And that moment, the American dream was born. So we have to do something about that. But if you allow people an opportunity to go back and forth, guess what? I would have probably never felt attached to this country. My loyalty would have been to somewhere else, with thankful for the opportunity that the United States provided. But that didn't happen. What happened instead was Clinton in 1996 created IRA, which says, and this is what people don't understand, if you lived in the United States more than 1 year undocumented, the moment you step abroad, just stepping, not even getting ported, you're barred for 10 years. So my brother's a citizen. He can petition me. My brother is over 21. They're processing paperwork from March 15, 2001 currently. And if I leave, that's a 10-year bar, which means if I'm lucky, I get to come back when I'm 60. That is not okay. We could do better.
I can't even possibly talk about.
Well, sorry. So
Excellent. Totally agree with all of that. I think there is such tremendous opportunity and so much need for immigrants of so many different backgrounds and so many different skill sets in the United States. We have to come up with real pathways, whether it's housing shortage. Couldn't agree more. One of the most frequent calls I get as an elected in Congress is from a conservative labor leader of the electricians here in Phoenix, who just cannot understand why the administration is going so extreme on the immigration issue, because they're losing workers, but also on things like rolling back clean energy tax credits, because that's killing tens of thousands of jobs in Arizona. So lots of, I think, concern around that. I get a lot of calls from local farmers who are having issues because people are scared to come to work, also historically conservative. So I think, again, another point that I think it's just gone, there's so much need here for skills and talent and workers that people just don't understand why it's gone so far. The other piece is also the complete shutting down that we have done of bringing in some of the best and brightest minds and geniuses from around the world. I mean, if you look at the founders of the biggest tech companies in the United States, they're largely immigrants. And one of the things that this administration has done, there were people who had already won the lottery to come do PhD programs in the United States at like Stanford and Harvard and MIT, from the best universities in India, Pakistan, Iran, China, etc. None of those people were allowed in following Trump's inauguration. And if that were to continue, we are not going to have the next, those next generation of the Googles and the Apples and all of these companies that are immigrant founded. So I think I know organizations now that are working on kind of like I forgot what they called it. It had a very catchy name, but basically just like the lost opportunity and what the U.S. will lose out on from an innovation perspective over the next 4 years, and then the impacts for the next 5, 10, 15 years by going so extreme in our policy.
didn't the president just reverse course when it came to the Chinese coming here, the people you're talking about? Didn't he reverse course on that policy recently with allowing them to come in? And didn't he ask for the companies that are investing in the U.S. to send their best and brightest to train American workers?
I don't know about the Chinese people. There's a bill like every week in Congress, I kid you not, trying to specifically go after Chinese students. It's an attempt, saying there's espionage, et cetera, which again, I'm sure there's cases here and there with validity, but trying to go after kind of all Chinese students and bar them from coming. I'll have to check on that. But from that I hear, because I'm Iranian American, I hear a lot from those students. I know that there's a university in Iran called Sharif. It's like the MIT of Iran. And none of those people who already were accepted, now none of them can come. And they were going to go do PhDs in engineering or artificial intelligence or XYZ, and now they cannot. And so
I'm sorry to interrupt you. What's fascinating about your story is I'm old enough, unfortunately for me, I'm old enough to remember when the Shah of Iran was deposed. I was a child when that happened. I remember as a little boy, but I remember America having such an alliance with Iran. We had actually done a half a $500 million arms deal with the Shah, and there was a time we were allied together. And so there are many Iranians that I'm friends with here in our community, like I'm less than you are, I'm sure, that are such great Americans because they came from a free society and fleeing a theocracy. The fear now, I think, in Americans is this generation sees the Iran that is there now, and they're afraid of the espionage because they're afraid people are coming here to hurt us because that government hates us so much.
And I mean, this is getting a little.
Yeah, sorry.
The nuance there is like Iranian people are not their government. They're actually vehemently against their government. It's just a government that anytime there's an uprising, a couple of years ago, there's something called the Women Life Freedom Movement. Literally millions of Iranian women went to the streets. Many were killed. The moment, whenever that happens, it's a very brutal government. They will just slaughter everyone. There's 18,000 people imprisoned. But yeah, that's the tragedy of that country's story is that the government is just brutal. They murder people. But people are desperate. I mean, they love the West. They love the United States. They want freedom, super smart, culturally, like also very secular. That's the other thing. It's not actually 70% of the country is super secular. My family, we're all agnostic. Like, people kind of turned against religion because of the way religion took hold of the country and turned it into a brutal regime.
Okay, thanks. Sheriff, on the issue of visas, if you expanded that worker visa program, is that something you think is viable? You talk so much about the vetting process. Do we have the technology, in your professional opinion, that we could update our background check system and open those visas to workers for filling jobs that aren't being done by Americans?
Excellent question, and it's ironic that you asked it because I was just at a conference with other sheriffs, and the topic of the conversation that we had during one of our meetings was the fact that, just to give you an example, the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office right now, their detention officers are 50% vacancy. So the jail has less than half the people that they need to run that jail efficiently. And when I joined the Navy in 1989, I went through boot camp with 3 individuals that were from the Philippines, and my company commander was from the Philippines. All 4 of them got their U.S. citizenship because they agreed to join the U.S. military. And after they successfully completed 1 enlistment, they got their U.S. citizenship. My company commander was a senior chief in the Navy. He obviously stayed way after his first enlistment, and he loved America so much. So when I was meeting with these sheriffs, that's what I proposed and got a very warm reception from is we have to take certified peace officers out of it because we would have to change Arizona law. To be a certified peace officer in Arizona, you have to be a U.S. citizen. But you don't have to be a U.S. citizen to be a corrections officer or detention officer. You just have to have legal right to work here. So why don't we have some sort of visa program where if someone wants to come over here and dedicate 4 years of public service as a detention officer, many of them would say, I have legal immigrants from Mexico that moved to the United States, became detention officers, and are going to retire or have retired as detention officers because it's a great career. It's what we were talking professionally. The state government is kind of ruling the retirement system right now. If you guys don't know, there's only one class of government employees in the state of Arizona that don't have a guaranteed government retirement system, and that's detention officers and corrections officers. So from a professional standpoint, we're working on that. That's part of the reason why we're not hiring is because the retirement system is so broken right now for those people that walk the toughest beat in the United States. But the other aspect of it is if we could extend a visa program for those jobs where the need is so great, I don't know anybody that would be against that.
All right, I want to be respectful of everybody's time because we're running a little bit late. I want to ask one more question. Are you good with sitting for one more question? Okay, so let me start with the sheriff. And we're going to ask all of you to be brief if you can. Give us one thing. One. If you could change one thing about the immigration system, whether it's order enforcement or immigration itself, what's the one thing on the top of your priority list you'd like to see changed?
I would love to see a better relationship being built by law enforcement and the immigrant community. TikTok right now and the community in general, we were describing this conversation before this, is there's so much fear that's being shared and felt because people are afraid. I mean, I saw a video this morning of a 5-year-old girl with autism who didn't make it inside the house, was a U.S. citizen, and she's being held up by law enforcement while the father is inside and they're trying to get to him. And it's this negotiating tactic between them. And as a lawyer, I'm like, get a warrant. Get a warrant, get that. You know, it doesn't have to be this situation. I am fearful for the amount of people in the community who are now afraid to call law enforcement on a crime. The whole purpose of a U visa was so people were not afraid to call law enforcement for a crime. I think that one of the ways moving forward, and I understand the whole doxing of society, I get it, but one of the things that I've always respected about law enforcement is the fact that they would do their job without a mask. They would do it with their shield and their name and their badge number. And to me, I was just like, whether you like it or not, it's not Mr. Robinson who's getting you in trouble. It's the country that they're trying to implement our laws. They're an officer of our laws. It's not Mr. Robinson at this moment. And I think there could be so much work done if it was done without a mask. You know, I think back to watching all the dang Batman movies, you know, like we don't hide behind the mask as our country. And I think even if we were to do that small change, it could do great to make sure we get these bad individuals out and then do well with the people that deserve the opportunity to be heard your story inside a courtroom.
All right, Sheriff, we'll go to you, Sheriff, and then we'll give the congressman the last word.
See, sir, with all due respect, that's one thing that we will definitely disagree on. I have people that I have hired that during the whole Black Lives Matter thing, Antifa would dox these employees and go to their wives' house. One employee that we have at the Pinal County Sheriff's Office, he moved down here from Oregon because while his police station was under siege and he was trapped inside for 3 days sleeping in shifts as they threw Molotov cocktails at his police station, Antifa was at his family's house terrorizing her and burning crosses in her front yard, and there was no police to respond when she called 911. So if there's one thing that I would like to change in this country is this is the example. If you don't like the way immigration is working right now, work on it from in the system, because no one's mind has ever been changed by a protest at an ICE raid. No one's mind has ever been changed. No one's driven down the road and said, oh yeah, they're screaming at that ICE agent that's just an employee, because understand, people, if they don't do it, there will be someone else there to do it. So if you want to change the system, change it from the inside. We have done a real disservice with our younger generation by telling them that the way they fix something is to stand on a street corner and yell and scream, because they lose their groupthink. If you guys didn't know this, we ran a drug operation in Pinal County that we kept turning drug dealers over until we got higher up the food chain. It ended up we went down to a known cartel member in Pima County. He had a warrant for his arrest for criminal trafficking in Mexico. He was a deported felon in the United States. We tracked his vehicle, got to his house, and my narcotics task force took him into arrest because my narcotics task force was wearing masks, because this was a known cartel member. We busted him with $5 million or 5 million fentanyl pills. At $1 a bill, that's $5 million of fentanyl that we took away from the cartels. 22 pounds of cocaine, 32 pounds of methamphetamines at this house. People got a message on the app that said this was an ICE raid, and they came over and started yelling and screaming at us, telling us to take their mask off. Understand that my employees have families and children, and they need to go home at night. And if you think the cartel isn't mad that we took 5 million fentanyl bills away from them, that's the real reason why law enforcement has to wear masks. On one side, we can't say it's okay for Antifa to walk around swinging skateboards like they're a deadly weapon wearing masks. That's all right. But the law enforcement is not able to protect their families.
So, Sheriff, let me follow up with you on that for a moment. But do you understand the perspective that says a community is afraid? Because I know you well enough to say that a rapport with the community that you serve is important to you and has been since you were a deputy. Is there room for law enforcement to have in the front of their mind that we have got to build back trust with the community, that whether it's, let's say it's from your perspective, they shouldn't be afraid, but it's a real fear to them. Do you think it's the responsibility of law enforcement to have that in mind when they're dealing with the community, to assuage those fears and to build that community? And do you think you're doing it at all or well enough?
I can only speak for the Pinal County Sheriff's Office and law enforcement Pinal County. We are doing it well there. As far as our community goes, they're very supportive of law enforcement. Listen, one big thing about the Pinal County is, if you guys don't know, we value individual liberties more than anything. If I may not agree with someone's speech, but I will defend it to the end. And when we go out and talk to community members on those sort of things, that's what they really appreciate. In Pinal County, I work for the voters. I was elected by the voters of Pinal County, and I work for the voters. They are very happy with our 287G program. I will tell you, it's one of the biggest things that gets misconstrued in mainstream media and talked about on Capitol, or the state capitol here, is our 287G program is quite simple. We don't have a task force. We don't have field agents. It's if someone gets arrested on state charges, someone gets arrested for domestic violence, they get arrested, and this is a crime that's bad enough that they would be booked into jail. This is not a speeding ticket. This is, you are arrested and you're going to jail. I have 287G certified detention officers that have the authority, because they've been through the training, to run their names through a federal database and say, this individual has a warrant for deportation back, they've seen judge, and then ICE comes and picks them up. It was okay for the Biden era, because I can tell you guys, I looked every month, and we're now in September, so I can't use September, but from January to August, every month under the first year of the Biden administration, they came and picked up more inmates from our jail than we did the exact same month in this year. So it was okay and when we explained that to the residents of Pinal County, they were like, yeah, exactly right. If they're here committing crimes in Pinal County, they should be deported. And so that's the program that we work there, and we gain the public trust that way.
All right, last word goes to you, Congresswoman Aubrey.
There's just so much to respond to. I can't possibly just give the thing I would change. If I may, just a couple things.
Well, I certainly copied.
First of all, obviously violence is never the answer. I think right now at this moment of heightened political violence, like, both sides need to play a big role in reducing the temperature. You reference Antifa a lot. Personally, I don't know anyone in Antifa. I think it's very common for typical public protesters, even peaceful protesters, to be given that label. Believe in peaceful protests, very important in this moment. I think I've always had a good relationship with law enforcement. I was on the Phoenix City Council, so I worked with the Phoenix Police Department. But what ICE is doing with the masks and the showing up and literally terrorizing communities. People are scared to send their kids to school, to go to work. People are getting separated from their kids while they're dropping them off at school. They're assaulted, the countless videos of masked ICE agents assaulting people, to the point where people are pretending to be masked ICE agents to kidnap and assault women. This is unacceptable. You don't wear a mask. Police officers don't wear a mask. ICE should not wear a mask. The fact that ICE agents are being offered $50,000 bonuses when we claim we can't pay teachers more in this country. ICE is out of control. That is my opinion. ICE is completely a rogue agency at this point, completely emboldened by Stephen Miller and this administration. And there's zero accountability in that. I think I completely agree with unmasking ICE. I would say I had my one thing. There's many. One big thing is we need to bring back compassion for people and humanize people, and not just give people these illegal alien and criminal and this and that. It's no, these are human beings, and most of them are hardworking people who are just trying to get by. And then second, maybe where we can agree, the big one is ending the private prison company contracts. I think they are, you said, evil. I completely agree. They are horrific. And maybe if we were to take this back into our own hands and had real compassion weaved into the system, we could do a better job as a country.
Okay, so if you're not associated with Arizona Talks and it's your first time here, this is what they do. They just had a Constitution Day event. They do these year round. They do periodically events where they bring people together for conversations that are interested. So first of all, if you don't mind thanking Carlos and thanking the people here, Arizona Talks. And secondly, we have three very busy people that are doing very important work in our community that came together for what is a civil conversation. I've learned a lot tonight. If you've learned a lot, you appreciate the conversation. Please thank our guests.
We actually have about 10 minutes for a couple of questions from the crowd. If
You do?
company is like burning and what's asked the question, what we have an open forum for about please 9 minutes. It's really short.
I'll bring the light to you. If there's anybody, raise your hand. I'll bring you the microphone. Yes, sir.
So the answer to the mask question to me sounded like I have one tool. I have a mask and I'll always use it. And I don't think that's right. When you're talking about law enforcement, there's degrees of violations. There's degrees of penalties that are applied with those. And I would think that law enforcement would understand that when you're in dealing with a cartel and you need to protect your officer's identity for their family's safety, and you're dealing with a parent delivering their child to school and they're not documented, that those are two completely different situations. If you're in the Navy and you're an electrician, I think that's what you said, there's different levels of protective gear you wear, depending on the type of electricity that you're dealing with. And I think the same thing could apply, that you could share your humanity as a law enforcement officer in low threat situations and yet protect your officers and your law enforcement personnel when there is, in fact, a serious threat to them.
Sheriff. Thank you.
Just point of clarification, I was a sonar tech in the Navy. I became a construction election entering it out.
Say it out.
Say an analogy. And no, sir, I did not say that masks are the one solution. I was trying to explain the analogy of is if there wasn't violent protesters there that are threatening these people's families at home, there would not be a need for law enforcement, feel a need that they needed to protect their identities. And I was using the analogy with the cartel members. There's no one when they recognize that my narcotics task force was taking a known cartel member in custody, and we knew one of his neighbors was also associated and had cameras pointed at us. There's no one that doesn't think that my employees should have their bats to them, but it's a real fear. I will tell you guys, when I decided to run for office, if you guys don't know, the prior sheriff Mark Clam asked me to run for sheriff. My beautiful wife will tell you that the number one thing that I had an issue with is if you run for office, you have to put your address out to the world. You have to tell the whole world where I actually live now. I put murderers in prison. There is one murderer that during her trial, she stabbed a fellow high school student to death. And during her trial, she said when she got out of prison, she was going to come and take me. So she now knows where I live because she's out of prison. That's how long I've been in law enforcement. She did her 15 years and now she's out of prison. But that's to tell you guys that I had to take the responsibility for me personally and say, now I'm vulnerable. This is where I live, and I recognize that fact. So I don't want to have to do that for my employees. If they feel legitimate, and I can only speak for the Pinal County Sheriff's Office and ICE agents that I've spoke to, the concern that they have is that they go to a scene, they don't know if it's going to become violent, and they don't know if they're going to get doxxed and have individuals come to their house while they're at work. That's the concern is I couldn't agree with the congressman more that the rhetoric on both sides has to calm down. It has to come down because we've gotten to a point where whether you like it or not, Charlie Kirk was killed for exercising his First Amendment right of free speech. And there's boiling points on both sides. And I would like to take the temperature back down. And I'd like to close by saying there's somewhere in here a joke because of the fact that we're Pinal County and we never did mask up. So COVID.
So let me, just a point of clarification. You did say earlier that you protect everyone's First Amendment rights to speak. So there's got to be a balance, because there were protesters that, as the Congresswoman said, that are just peacefully protesting, and it's an important thing right now. But there are people that are doxing and are putting people in danger. My brother is a law enforcement officer, and so is his wife, and they face the same threat. What's the balance? How do we balance the First Amendment with the real fear law enforcement might have of being doxxed and have their families threatened? Either one of you or both of you can address it, you two.
I think the situation is the whole chicken or the egg situation. The reason you have so many people showing up at these protests to protest someone getting detained is because of the rhetoric that's been built. You know, if there was a better relationship with ICE officers correctly applying for the warrant, getting the individual, getting them out of their house, like everything that's been taught at these Know Your Rights things, I describe me. I have not once said to be combative, to be argumentative, to fight back. I said, they literally put and have asked me, I don't even know if they're law enforcement. And I can't tell you either, but if you're combative, this is going to be turned completely different. So I'm sorry to say this, assert your right to remain silent, say you want to fight your case, you want your attorney present, and you give them your arms. That is the best thing that you can do at that point. But that's what I think that we need to do is I think the longer we let this kind of situation continue to boil over, unfortunately, I think we are creating a pepper cake.
So who's responsible to be the first one to tone it down?
So my perception, it would be law enforcement. Why? Because they are agents of the government. And whether we like it or not, it's a higher standard. If me as an attorney, all of a sudden I show up without a tie or a suit to face that judge, the judge expects better of me because of my role. And that is not fair, but that is also one of the reasons why I think we should respect our law enforcement. And that's why we do hold them up for their service, because it is service that they create. And it's a sacrifice that they're making day in and day out. You mentioned putting your career and your family at risk for upholding our laws. I would never want someone to be targeted because of that. But I think having that role does ask a little bit more than the layperson.
Okay, you out.
I would like to respond to the question you just asked. I think that the responsibility in this moment of turning down the temperature, there's nobody more influential than the President of the United States in doing that. And what concerns me is that even in this moment, after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which, for the record, I voted to condemn in the House. And
You do it right, congratulate.
thank you, but I received a lot of backlash from my own party. So I do want to say that's another issue that I think is real.
For those of you that don't know, the resolution that was brought up in the House to condemn the murder of Charlie Kirk, Congresswoman Ansari voted in favor of that resolution to condemn it. And she took a lot of heat. And we talked about it on the air. You deserve a lot of credit for standing up and doing that. So thank you.
It was a lose-lose. I do appreciate, I think it was the right thing. I think it's important to condemn political violence. There are lines in the resolution that I did not agree with in terms of who he was. And that is when I'm talking about the polarization of the parties. Like, I was raked over the coals by my own party because of that. But that's besides the point.
Okay.
Donald Trump got up on stage and said Charlie Kirk was somebody who did not hate his enemies. And he did not hate the people who he did not agree with. I do hate my enemies. I do think that my political opponents, I forget the exact quotes, but that is the exact opposite of turning down the temperature after a violent political assassination. And so I think that that is something that terrifies me, because if we don't have it, it has to come at the highest levels. That's when people listen to.
Okay.
I have a quick question on that. Were there resolutions introduced when the Minnesota legislators upheld? Were there resolutions?
There were, and Republicans voted for it. The difference in the resolutions, these are nuances that I'm learning in Congress. There were a lot of traps created on both sides to put people in tough positions. So the resolution condemning the murder of Melissa Hortman was very much focused on her murder and assassination and how horrific it was. It didn't, I guess, glorify her in some sort of way. And Republicans voted for it. This resolution was largely about condemning political violence, but also had several lines that really elevated Charlie Kirk's words and what he believed in and whatnot, which of course, and I totally understand, to many communities is something that they cannot support. But the reason myself and I think about 95 Democrats voted for it was because, again, in this moment, I think we have to take the temperature down, the fear that you were mentioning, Sheriff. I mean, I'm moving apartments. We were changing our district office. I now have security. My team is scared. Like we have in Congress, members of Congress, I've seen a 50% rise in death threats just in the first 9 months of the year.
Wow.
And honestly, as a 33-year-old, I would be lying to you if I said it feels like this is worth it every single day, because it's just insane. So I'm really trying to do my part in bringing the temperature down and engaging in dialogue. And again, thanks to Arizona Talks, I think this kind of thing is really perfect for that.
Out of time, right? Yeah. All right, we're out of time. Thank you again, everyone, for coming. Thank you so much.
Deuce.